believe I've been that intro again. I've not done that for a long time. Yeah, I didn't have the little countdown video going. It's just that when we've got an actual professional filmmaker with us tonight, and I've binned it.
I mean, it does happen a lot, so...
Cheers. Thanks for your support. Right, welcome to the Honest Inquisition, episode 341, on Sunday the 18th of August, 2024. I'm Phil.
And I'm Matt.
No, Ben's tonight. We don't know where he's gone.
No.
He's AWOL.
He is, yeah. Hopefully he's safe and sound somewhere.
Yeah, but never fear, because joining us on down the line, we have Richie Willett. How you doing, Rich?
I'm good, thank you.
Sorry,
thank you for having me. I love your setup.
Sorry, Rich. You all right?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, it's lovely to be here. Lovely to speak to you.
Yeah, it's a long time coming, man. We get guest suggestions on our little private chat room that we have online. Yes. And I think it was Helen in the Element server.
Oh, it's always Helen, isn't it?
Get Richie on. And I was like, great idea, because people in our circles will be familiar with a lot of your stuff. Like they might have heard you on macroaggressions, or you had a YouTube. What was your YouTube channel called? Was it Glitching the Code a while back?
It was, yeah. I did that, and then I got banned for saying naughty things during the whole scam. Yeah. And then then we kind of migrated everything over to, we built Ickonic with the Ickes, and everything's on there now, really. So yeah, and that's changed into a few different shows as it's kind of progressed over the last 4.5 years. At the moment, I'm doing Classified, which has been about a year now. But yeah, all the old Glitch in the Code stuff on there. But that's how I started out around about 7 or 8 years ago, doing that. It was just a standard podcast to start off with, and then how you get into these strange worlds, isn't it? You do some strange things,
and it's getting out of them as well. Like, because tell you what, I'm a big reader. Love reading books. I don't really watch TV and stuff anymore. And I finished a book yesterday, day before. And it was pretty heavy. It was about like Celtic history and how the Celts spread across Europe and the road networks. And it was really heavy going. And I struggled, but I got through it. I thought, right, I'll pick my next book. And I had on the shelf what's called The Lost City of Z.
Nice.
I think it got made into a movie,
yes.
Which I haven't seen. Has it got Brad Pitt in it?
No, it's got the fake, cheaper version, Charlie Hunnam.
Okay. Oh, God, he's terrible. Right. Yeah. But it's about Colonel Percy Fawcett, who's one of these sort of explorers, sort of late Victorian era explorers, and there was loads of them knocking about. And they were just mad lads who go on these epic journeys into the unknown for fame, fortune, call it. And he famously went missing on this last expedition, and it's a huge mystery. And like dozens of people have gone missing, going after him over the following century or whatnot. And I thought, well, I'll pick this up. It'll be like a nice light read. I'll enjoy it. It's a good, I'm sure it's a good yarn. I won't have to think too hard about it. And I'm not even 50 pages in, and Madame Blavatsky comes up, because he's around at this same period where it's sort of like 1880s, that sort of era, where Theosophy is booming in London. And it turns out that Percy Fawcett's brother, Edward, I think he was called, was a theosophist. And not just any theosophist. He helped Blavatsky write The Secret Doctrine. He was part of like the team that went into writing it. It's like, God, I just can't escape the bloody occult. It's everywhere. Well, like wherever you look in pop culture, there are threads leading to all these different areas, aren't there?
Oh, it's absolutely everywhere. It's the spine that kind of hold it all together. I mean, the Theosophy stuff, I find that fascinating. I'm one of the kind of take on it that the information itself isn't, evil or anything. It's how they use it. But the Theosophy stuff, I mean, you mentioned to someone who's Christian there, they lose their, can I swear? They lose their,
just don't say fuck or cunt.
Oh, okay. Then I won't say those two then.
Right.
I won't say fuck nor cunt, but shit. They lose their shit over it. And but I find all that stuff absolutely fascinating. Like her links back to Cairo when she disappeared off to Cairo for a little while to learn from the mystery schools there, and you can see how all of that information's been brought over. So the person like you talking about, Percy, I mean, who funded his expeditions? That's what always fascinates me. So where'd you get your bloody money from? Because most people have got to go and work at the Sainsbury's. Where do you get your money from? So it's always like there's something behind this. Who's funding these expeditions to go and do these weird and wonderful things? So I always find that the most fascinating thing.
Well, in his case, it's the Royal Geographic Society.
Oh, well, that go then. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you find that most of these sort of, when there was this sort of boom in archaeology, it was always well-to-do people, landowners, lords and ladies and whatnot. So people who are either independently wealthy or, I'll tell you what it was. Well, this is the mainstream sort of thinking behind it, was that the Royal Geographic Society was founded to map the Earth, to chart the Earth, basically, and that they would fund anyone who wanted to, because like there was just gaps all over the atlas, all over the map, where it would say, you know, there be beasties here, or, you know, beware the werewolves, or what's them, you know, the women with fish for legs, mermaids.
Two fish, two dangling fish.
Yeah.
Legs.
Yeah, so that was part of it. That's the sort of the mainstream. We all know that there's probably other reasons for sort of, I mean, gold, for example. You know, if the stories of El Dorado are true and there's this massive stockpile of precious metals somewhere in the Amazon, then that's an obvious other motivation to, you know, if some random whack job wants to spend it, you know, risk his life going into uncharted Amazon, yeah, we'll fund you, but as long as we get a cut of
what you find.
Yeah. And Empire, I guess. Empire probably has a lot to do with it. But that was one of the things that was interesting about the Theosophical connection, because this is a period where the British Empire is trying to, well, it is colonizing the East, and you get this feeling of the British Empire trying to stamp sort of Christianity and Western values, democracy, capitalism on the Eastern countries, like Sri Lanka was a place he lived for a while. But like Fawcett, his brother, he turned to Buddhism. He took there's a certain rite where you say like 5 vows, which it's called like the Prishna or Pranish, I can't remember. But like one of them is denouncing violence. Okay. And these are military officers, so like he's a colonel.
You had one job.
Yeah, you fact it up. But yeah, it's interesting how deep it goes.
It really is with the Royal Societies and stuff like that. Like I've looked into that recently, and they always come up when I was looking into the background of the X kind of symbology, and that goes way back to Saturn. But Thomas Huxley pops up with his X Club, and that's obviously the X Club of today. It's transhumanism, which was Julian Huxley rebranded eugenics as transhumanism. So his granddad was running a club called the X Club, which was basically something that happened literally hours before the Royal Society meetings happened, and they were full of the elite Royal Society members. So you've got this eugenics thing, and X is basically X marks the eugenicists and transhumanists, and then you've got Musk today, who's clearly the poster child for the eugenics transhumanist agenda. And you just see this whole thing. So you've got this whole British Royal Societies, and I had William Ramsey on my show a couple of weeks ago, and he's kind of the take that America did get independence. I don't tend to believe that. I believe that the British Royals just faded off into the background and said, "Oh, here's some Freemasons, go look after that bit of a project." And but he kind of tends to believe there was a. But when you look at the timing, 1776 was obviously the year of independence. It's the same bloody year that Mayer Amschel Rothschild and Adam Weishaupt and Jacob Frank got together to create what you would call the Illuminati of today. Obviously, that's just a blanket term. So the timing of it is like there's clearly a change in their not agenda, but a change in their switch in their play at that point. So they faded off into the background. So it's really interesting to see how this agenda is going forward. And when you look at like things that are happening today, you can see it playing out. And what I don't know if you guys are, because you've been around the alternative media just as long as I have, seeing what's going on today with the likes of Alex Jones and clearly pushing this, J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, Donald Trump agenda thing that's going on, which is bizarre when you know basically as much as he should know. And then you see the Catholic Church going up against the Christians and the Muslims and the Solomon's Temple stuff, and it all just blends back in to this agenda that goes back thousands of years, and it's people can't get their head around it. You'd have hours to explain it, but it's just amazing. It's like the greatest story that's been told but not really understood, and it's right in front of people to understand where this is going. I just find that fascinating to be able to kind of reveal to people that this goes there and this goes there, and you can bring up one thread and it literally, you pull on it and you can see the jumper kind of unveiling and unraveling somewhere down the other end of the corridor, because it is all connected. And that's what I think people find hard to get their head around. Is like, well, it couldn't be planned that long. The agenda was planned that long, not necessarily the nuance of how it's happened, but the symbology is something to symbology and money, and ideologies are something to look into. But the fact that that guy just turns up and he's part of the Theosophy Society, then funded by the Royal Societies, one of them, it just shows you that these things are just planned. And people like Blavatsky was just one. She was a Secret Service agent. I mean, that is clearly what she's doing. Whether she's called herself that, that's what she's doing. She's getting information from elsewhere to push forward this mystery agenda that goes back to Egypt. And I just find that like absolutely fascinating that that's still here today with these people.
It's crazy. I've never done like a lot of heavy research into Blavatsky, although I've read I think I've read Isis Unveiled and maybe like an abridged version of The Secret Doctrine, because it's massive. I think Helen read it and it almost killed her in The Element. It's a massive book. But hey, do you know she smoked 200 fags a day?
I wouldn't be surprised. No, that's amazing. Even how'd you afford that? Who's funding that?
Well, they were cheaper, I think.
Oh, yeah, less tax, yeah. She probably sent someone over to France.
Maybe.
Avoid the duty.
Yes.
Can you bring some back?
Yeah, well, she got some of those fake ones.
I've got to nip back to Tibet and I need to take some back with me.
Yes.
She got that Pat Butcher voice going on.
Is there any recordings of her about, do you know? Like
audio?
I
think there is. I think there is. Again, I've done like surface level research on my way through to look into other things. But again, I think there is some recordings of it.
It's funny, you wonder how much of it is just like a divide and conquer kind of tactic going on, or if there's some sort of overarching spiritual angle to all this. This is what it's difficult to know how far to go with all this stuff, because like the pragmatist in me just thinks about power, money, control, and the means justifying the ends, and that's all it is. It's just sort of greed and common or garden human sociopathy or psychopathy. But you do wonder if there's something deeper, if there's like a spiritual element to all this. What do you reckon, Rich?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely, I would say, I mean, again, these are just my opinions, but an ideology behind it. Absolutely. You don't need to look any further than looking at this messianic, there's a messianic agenda to this that's it's heading towards Temple Mount, Jerusalem. There's this whole messianic agenda there, and that is interwoven into all of these different aspects. And it goes back to the ancient mystery schools. It goes back through Babylon. It goes back through obviously Rome, Babylon, and then on to Mesopotamia, and then back onto ancient mystery schools and possibly Mayan culture. And some people believe Atlantis, but I'm not sure. I mean, again, these are just the information's there. But where it seems to be heading, it's an ideology, and a massive part of it is a messianic ideology that you see popping up through the likes of Chabad Lubavitch, which is a Jewish messianic cult, and they are a cult in Brooklyn, currently in Brooklyn. And this connects into a lot of the politicians of today, including Trump, and Musk is part of that, and Netanyahu is part of that, and Putin's part of that. And this is whole push towards this temple, Third Solomon's Temple on Temple Mount, which would take the place of the Alaska Mosque there. And it is, that's a massive part of it. And it actually ties into transhumanism. When you look into things like Westworld, the TV series, which I'm sure most people have seen, if you look at the main hub in Westworld, like the main CPU computer thing where AI is connected from, where this fake world is broadcast from, that's called Rehoboam, which when you look in biblical terms is the son of Solomon. Wow. So there is a messianic end times agenda to it. And my take on it is that they want to have the Solomon's Temple as this place where the smart grid, the Internet of Things, the Internet of all things, Internet of bodies will be housed. That will be where it is, which will be the son of Solomon. So you look at the beast and the mark of the beast. That's why X is so important, because it's the Saturn symbol. If you look at 9/11, 9/11 is IXXI in Roman numerals. When you push them all together, it's the sigil of Saturn. When you look at Solomon's Temple, the first one, I don't believe there ever was a Solomon Temple, by the way, but I'm going on the the narrative. The first one was apparently destroyed on the 9th of Av, which is the 9th of the 11th month. And the second one was apparently destroyed on the 9th of Av. So it's Av in the civilian Hebrew language is Av, which is November. So 9/11, it doesn't matter which way around you have them, 11/9, 9/11, they don't really seem to care, this cult, of which way around the numbers are. But when you look at Solomon's Temple, put when the first one was supposed to be sacked, and it's 9th of November, the second one was 9th of November. You got 9/11, obviously, that happened, but they took down the Twin Towers. The Twin Towers are Yachin and Boaz, which are the two towers outside Solomon's Temple, which represent the negative and positive. But they're also the two towers that are outside every Freemasonic temple or lodge, because they are the Freemasons, are the Knights Templar, who apparently went back to the original temple and took the gold and all the mysteries there. So this narrative is there. It's there. There's no doubt about it in my mind that they're playing towards this narrative, and it's going to end up at Solomon's Temple. When you see this sort of thing in Gaza happening, and you see Netanyahu talking about Amalek and all of this biblical stuff, that's a push towards the temple. And when you look at the Greater Israel Project, look at the map and put it next to the kingdom of Ramses II, it's the same. They're trying to recreate their golden age, which was the golden age of Saturn. So this is very real to them. This is a cult that's pushing this agenda all the way forward, and it could go back 8,000 years. But the information is there. So there's no doubt in my mind that this is all related, and then it just connects to everything. When you look at Donald Trump, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is a Chabadnik. Malay, Chabadnik, just joined Chabad Lubavitch. If you look at Donald Trump, he signed their Education Day in, and so did Obama. If you look at Putin, he's got a Chabad rabbi. Why would he have a Chabad rabbi? They're Jewish. If you look at Netanyahu, he's on video talking to their guy Schneerson, who passed away. There's their Messiah, who they believe is going to come back, saying that I will fulfill this project. This was years ago. This was decades ago. So when people think that these people are against each other, well, the connecting thing is this messianic agenda that's underneath all of it. Or you got Jared Kushner in Qatar sitting with Elon Musk with the Saudi royals. What the fuck? I mean, you're supposed to be against each other. It doesn't make sense, but it does if you understand that there is no divide here. Because his bit is the technology transhumanist level, which is X, the Club X of Thomas Huxley, goes back to eugenics. And then you've got like the Jared Kushner who's in with the Chabadniks pushing that agenda. But it all comes back to this almost like a showdown on Temple Mount. And it's really, really, the evidence is overwhelming that that's where it's heading.
It's terrifying.
That's where they want it. It's terrifying, and it's like when you try and explain it to people, they look at you and go, "You are mental." Go, yeah, but I just pointed out that they're mental. Like, I don't believe any of this messianic stuff. I don't believe there's any antichrist coming back or anything like that. But the signs are there that these guys are pushing this messianic agenda to bring back what they believe to be their antichrist or the Messiah. And unfortunately, they're playing the right now in the UK, and you've seen it, obviously living in the UK, the Islam against Christians. Clearly. Well, there's a part in the biblical text where it's called, it's a famous story, the Leviathan versus the Behemoth, but it's a mutually destructive war. And it's one character there that picks off the remains called Ziz. Now, to me, Ziz represents this Sabbatean cult that sits behind Israel and uses the people of Israel. They're not involved, obviously. They're just fodder. So you've got this triangulation there. And when you look into this stuff, you're like, fuck me, it's just... And maybe it's being a filmmaker. You can see these stories really, really easy. You look at Lord Rothschild. He was the 5th member, by the looks of it, of the Cambridge 5, spiring. And you're like, he wasn't working for MI5 or MI6 or KGB. He was running the fucking thing. It's just insane to think that he was running. Like, they're connected to all these families. You've got the Palavancinis, these big old black nobility families that go back thousands of years. Some of them connected into Caesar, the first 5
Back to Roman times, yeah, like the Orsini's and various
The
other ones.
The Orsini's, that's absolutely. The Orsini's are connected to the Caesar families. It's pronounced slightly different then. It's written slightly different. But they're the first five emperors of Rome, because this is an old Roman cult, which is the old Babylonian cult. So when you look at Washington, D.C., look at the U.S. Supreme Court, it's the Temple of Saturn. If you look at the Bank of England, it's the Temple of Saturn. If you look at Hollywood, it's a replica of it's the replica of the Hollywood hills in Rome, Nemi, around a thing called Lake Diana, where they used to sacrifice the rich and offer them to be immortal, which was to be a star, because the stars are deemed to be immortal, which is just Hollywood. It's an old satanic ritual.
Well, it's like when you look at that room where the president does a lot of his briefings from. I can't remember the name of the room in particular in the White House. It might be in the Capitol building, but it's got the fasces behind him. It's where we get the word fascist from, and it goes back to Roman times. The fasces had a bundle of sticks with an axe stuck down it, and this was the sort of threat that the state had for instilling discipline. So if you transgressed in ancient Rome, the fasces would come and they would either beat you with the sticks or they would chop your hands off, or even worse, with the axe. And it's right there, right behind the president, over the president's shoulder. They've got these fascist symbols.
There's two.
One inside,
right behind them. Yeah, right behind them. And obviously, you just mentioned their Capitol Hill. It's Capitoline Hill in Rome. There's 7 hills of Capitoline Hills. Capitol Hill is one of the 7 hills in Washington, D.C. It's Capitoline Hill, which is the Capitoline Hills of Rome, one of which was where the Temple of Saturn was. And it's they've just gone, well, we'll stick it over there. No one will notice. The internet ain't going to be around for a long time. They'll forget by then. And it's just so bloody obvious. When you look at like that land, Washington, D.C. was originally called Rome, Maryland, and it was given to them, no word of a lie, by a guy called John Pope. Fucking John Pope. You're taking a piss. They're laughing at people. They are laughing. I've seen some of the comments saying the Saudi royals are Sabbateans. Absolutely. Completely agree with you. Sabbatean Frankists, which was one of the guys that met with Mayer Amschel Rothschild and Adam Weishaupt, who was a Jesuit, by the way, controlled and funded by the Farneses family. It was just a collection of just people at that point. It was just a pinpoint where you can put it. But the fact it was 1776 is very specific. They do these things on these dates on purpose. Sites, dates. They're ritualistic. Yeah. They're a cult. Everything's a ritual to them.
And it's like, as long as they believe in it, it kind of doesn't matter what you think. It's like I'm quite an open book when it comes to this sort of symbolism and occult rituals. I think there might be something in it. I think the human unconscious is a very powerful thing that we don't really understand. And you've got the power of suggestion, the power of will, all sorts of, there's a whole spectrum. You can go from the sort of Derren Brown spectrum of this is mind games, I can suggest you, I can bend you to my will through the power of suggestion, whatnot, all the way through to the more metaphysical sort of philosophies over all this stuff. But in the end, it kind of doesn't matter because it's been done to you whether you believe it or not. And
exactly, I completely agree. Like, it doesn't matter, and it's the kind of analogy of they're using your own creative ability against you, which is what they do. They manipulate you and gaslight you into just basically building your own prison, which is what everybody's doing right now. Yeah. They can't do it without you. I mean, some people believe that they need tacit compliance. Tacit compliance, because there's like a karma law to their cult, which is almost like the vampires. You have to invite them in. And my mate Gaz, Gareth Icke, he talks about that all the time, and he believes that to be true. And I think that's part of their cult ritual. Whether it's actually true, does it really matter? Because it gets the job done. So. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, the whole Kabbalah thing is basically a physical. Is the Solomon's Temple? Solomon's Temple is a physical representation of of a spiritual principle, and they've tried to take it and put it in the material world and control people by it. But it was supposed to be a spiritual principle. The Kabbalah is a massive part of it. There's different versions of the Kabbalah. It's very mixed. Lurianic Kabbalah seems to be the one that these kind of darker cultists follow. But again, the information
is that the same as Madonna?
She's like a commercial Kabbalah, I think. But you see, Trump the other week, he got given a Kabbalah, the red bracelets that ward off the evil eye, and he took it, and he was there being Like they were Habadniks at his event and speaking. I mean, he's obviously in the pocket of Israel. So, you can see it all happening. It's very much, and people think, oh, it's Israel, it's Israel. It's actually, this Sabbateans behind Israel. But really, when it goes back to this is an age-old cult that goes through Rome, goes through the City of London, goes through the Vatican, goes through Washington D.C. They store their money in Basel, Switzerland, which is the Tower of Babel. When you look at it, look at the building. It's the Tower of Babel. They've even made it look like it. They haven't gone anywhere. They just built a lot of shit around them, so we didn't see it anymore. Like the tower they've got a church, the Temple Church in London is still active.
It makes you think, because when you talk about these characters, they've all been incredibly successful. And it makes you wonder if the newcomers, whether the cult, or however you want to describe them, whether it picks up people once they reach a certain level. It's sort of a bit like how the intelligence agencies will recruit people from Cambridge and Oxford. Mm-hmm. You wonder if they're picking people on the way up, or whether people are indoctrinated from a young age and it just happen to be, then the power of the machine helps to elevate them to this level of success.
Yeah, and then it gets to a certain point where if your mortgage is 16 grand a month, or you're living a lifestyle that you have to keep up, then how can you lose that? You can't go back to working in a shop. Well, you can, but I mean, you're going to lose everything and have to go back to nothing. Most people will go like, really, I can't afford losing all of this. You see people with, even in the alternate media, if you've got a fucking farm, if you've got a ranch, I've got questions. We've done this for years. I don't expect you guys to probably have a ranch, and I definitely didn't have a ranch. There's a reason why you've got a lot of money, because you've been allowed to get to a certain point, like a level. Like people look at Tucker Carlson now; he's done some great stuff through the years. But look at his background. His dad, Dick Carlson, was the one of the main members of USIA, which basically was the media arm of the government. Now, so he was very closely associated with Richard Nixon and George H.W. Bush. Both went to Bohemian Grove. So then you've got Alex Jones on his show a couple of weeks ago putting out a new video. Old Bohemian Grove still going. You scroll up to the top of his banner and he's there with Tucker Carlson. And this whole fucking thing is just intelligence. It can't not be. I'd have to pretend I'm dumb not to see that, and I'm not going to. So there is questions to be had here about this whole thing. And the fact is that Tucker Carlson has been allowed to get where he is because of who his dad was, and his dad was massively connected to the US government. So how can you say that, yes, okay, that's your dad, you're not your father? I get that. But you've got, as you just said there, my point is that I'm backing up what you're saying, is that you've got to this level. I think that you've been allowed to get to that level, and he wears a red bracelet. I've been told he isn't a Kabbalist, but he's got one on. Putin wears one. Putin even brought, yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then Putin's surrounded by openly Kabbalistic Habadniks. So I'd have to have a brain fart not to understand that as something to be looking into. So I get to the point now, and I just think, it's so obvious that not only is the alternative media up to a certain level completely was always controlled, which I probably reckon it was, but it's become completely just destroyed now. Trump played a massive part in that, obviously.
The problem is people don't know who to trust now these days. So, I mean, we hear it all the time. People throw the term controlled opposition about all over the place now, and it sows. I mean, it's probably right to a degree, but it sows a lot of distrust in the alternative world. And there are people out there on YouTube who will they'll call anyone, absolutely anyone, controlled opposition because they did a Illuminati hand signal or whatever on a video from 5 years ago.
But as I said, you don't have to start it out that way. If you're kind of getting to the point where you're getting a lot of money and you're having a lifestyle that actually takes a lot of money and a lot of money to uphold, all it takes is someone to sue you for $1 billion to go, I kind of need to kind of look after my family now. That's totally understandable.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't mean they have to be complicit in it. The system itself is the beast system. It's like, don't hate the player, hate the game. This system The more you want, the more stuff you want, the more lavish a lifestyle, the more you're going to have to pay to play. And I think that's kind of the key here is, you can get this information out, but you're probably going to be shadow banned on X and no one's going to see it. But
Yeah.
you go, okay, well, maybe one day I might have made a tiny bit of a difference. No one's going to remember that I did it, but I will.
And you have to be independently, you have to be sort of crowd supported as well. This is why we use the value for value thing. There was an interesting story this week. Who was it? Apple have changed the rules for Patreon. So now, like independent podcasters like us, if they use a Patreon thing and their listeners use the Patreon App Store app, Apple are going to wallop 30% charge on all the transactions. And Patreon is saying, well, we're not sucking that. And Apple is saying, well, you're going to pay. So all these sort of independent creators who are reliant on Patreon for their income, they're going to have to start putting the prices up. And it's just another straw that's breaking on the back. You're already getting demonetized if you're on YouTube. Every video of ours gets demonetized instantly, pretty much. I don't care really. The only way it can work for us is for people to put their hand in the pocket and donate from A to B without any middlemen.
Well, that's it, isn't it? That's the way they did it. They used it to steal the gold from Solomon's temple and take it out at the Temple Church in London, so they didn't have to carry it and get robbed on the way. They ain't stupid. They know to cut out the middleman. Yeah. They were doing it, and then they placed their middleman in the middle. So now we're using the internet, which is DARPA controlled and DARPA created. You're using YouTube, which is Alphabet, which is DARPA created. You've got X, which is controlled by the same people that Elon Musk pretend he hates Google, although he'll take 200 million from them from Starlink a few months back. I mean, it's all a joke, really, to these guys, which is really sad when you see people following them and genuinely thinking that they're going to help them. But, you've just got the digital ID thing that is being pushed through, and that's going to stop you. That will be a block for you not to get on the internet one day. There's no doubt about it if they get their way. You will not be able to get. So when people talk about Bitcoin and all these things, well, how are you going to get on the technology if you can't bloody access it because you're cast out the system like they do in China? So this is what we're saying is that it's all very well, but if it's not in the real world, then you are using someone else's world. You're in an alternative universe, and me the same. We're all the same. We're all going to do it. So we just have to look at these things and go, actually, this is probably only going to be around for a short amount of time. We're going to have to meet up in the cities and just chat.
The wild west of the internet is coming to an end, and it's become very obvious over the last few weeks. But don't worry, Rich, because Labour MP Clive Lewis has got the solution. He's just tweeted today that he thinks what we should do is set up a open source, publicly owned social media platform that's run by the state. And then we won't need Twitter and Facebook and all the other things. We can just use
a publicly owned, but it's run by the state.
Yeah, publicly owned, so state funded, like how the railways used to be publicly owned. They say publicly owned, but you don't actually own any of it. The government does.
Yeah, but who owns the government? The same fucking banking families that own the NGOs.
I mean, the irony's in there as well, isn't it? By him posting on Twitter to say, or X, sorry.
This is a horrible platform.
Yes.
We need to set up our own, and I want to be in charge.
How many likes did
it
get?
Do you know what? I used to work at a place where he had his office. Clive Lewis.
Oh yeah,
he's an arsehole, and he's
he's
shit. No, I did. Yeah, I worked in Norwich, and he had his offices in. Norwich,
no shit is an arsehole.
Yeah, well.
Oh no, he is. Yeah, well, there's loads of shit around that arsehole, and he's not a particularly nice person. And he's the reason why David Icke was at the football ground. He's one of the reasons why David Icke was at Norwich football ground, and he had to relocate the event because of Clive Lewis and his mob. Anti-Semitism and all that nonsense of not understanding. He doesn't even know what a Semite is. It's a group of languages, mostly Arabic. But it's the same nonsense, isn't it? Well, it's going to be publicly funded, is it? Like, what do you mean by that? It's going to go through the government. Who do you think runs the government? Who do you think puts the bloody judges in place? It's the same system. And this is the issue, is that people, you can't get out of the game by playing the game.
No,
the game.
it's just part of the sort of left-wing ideology is that if something's broken, get the state to run it, and it'll be fixed.
But then who runs the state? It's the same people that you're trying to get away from, the same people that are controlling the likes of BlackRock. Where do you think that money comes from? It's old money that goes into BlackRock, that goes into all of these corporations. They're hidden behind so many different levels of different corporations. It's the same banking families that are controlling the politicians. The same families, not just banking families, old black nobility, papal nobility, ancient bloodline families. This money, they don't just give it up and go away. They're still around. You had the Rothschilds were very close to the British royals. Very, very close. They were their banking families. I don't know which way around they kind of functioned, but I mean, they're not British royals anyway, but you know what I mean. We're not looking. So this is where this ideology comes from. If you look at the British Israelism, which I didn't even heard of, and I've done this for a while, and I didn't even heard until about 6 months ago, is that the British royals and many others, so, you know, these elites, and I hate using that term, but I don't know what else to say, they believe that they are of the 10 tribes of Israel. They are genetically connected.
Wow.
Look it up. Just Google British Israelism. They believe that they are descended from the 10 tribes of Israel, including the British royals. So I know not British, so German, you know, I get all that. Because this cult is prevalent through all of this nonsense. That's why you have the sigil of Saturn on the Balmoral cross. The sigil of Saturn is, what is it? It's the IXXI, which is 9/11, the Roman numerals, and come back to the information I was talking about before. Look at the sigil of Saturn. And it's on the Balmoral cross. It's on the Balmoral crest. Now, Balmoral is Baal.
I was just thinking then Balmoral, not Balmoral.
Yeah, it's Baal. It's Balmoral, which is obviously a pagan deity. Then you got the Queen was a druid. She was accepted into a druid bar in the 1940s. Like, they pretend to be Christian. They pretend to be all these things, and they ain't fucking Christian. They're not even close to being Christian. Like, there is a satanic element to what they do. That's why you had Jimmy Savile hanging around them for years. It's the evidence is in your face. They just know that people won't want to look at it because it's so, like, I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to do anything about it, but it's bloody interesting. Let's at least laugh at it because it's absurd. And they are pushing towards this Middle East during Solomon's Temple. They've even built the bloody replica of the temple.
I've seen that.
The heifers and all of this nonsense.
Oh, yes, the pristine heifer.
Yeah.
Yeah, the red heifer. Is it a red heifer?
It's a red heifer,
yeah. I've been hearing all this chatter. It's all very interesting, very dark.
Where have they built the temple?
Jerusalem.
Right.
They built a model of the temple so far.
Oh, a model, right. Okay.
Here's what you could have won type thing.
There's a bit of a problem because, like, where the temple should be, that's where the Alaska Mosque is.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because of
where the
Third Crusades and all that, you see.
Yes. And
then you look at the Saudi royal. So what is a Saudi royal of the guys that run their sovereign, the Qatar sovereign fund, the Saudi royals and the guys that run the Qatar sovereign funds? They're not the same people, but they're Saudi. Why are they sitting next to Elon Musk and Jared Kushner, who's a Habbanic Jewish sect, at a football game in Qatar? Well, you should hate each other.
What were they doing with George Bush on the night of 9/11? Why was their plane the only one that was allowed to leave American airspace after the event?
Because
the Saudi royal family. So weird. It's so weird, Rich.
They all fit together. Well, it might be the fact that all that's very top, they don't care. They're not into any of this shit. They just want to control everyone. It's like even Klaus Schwab was in a mosque not far away from where the 9/11 incident happened.
Was it?
That morning
in
with
New
a
York?
Chabad preacher, with a Chabad rabbi, sorry. Yeah, he was that morning. Klaus Schwab.
I didn't know that.
This is a long time before we heard of the Klaus Schwab. I mean, he was doing it anyway, but we didn't really hear about him until about 5 or 6 years ago, properly.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the day of the morning of, he was having breakfast or something like that. I'm assuming it's breakfast this morning, and with a rabbi, a Chabad rabbi in New York, Brooklyn. This is where all this stuff happens as well. It's in New York, is a massive part of this. So Fauci as well. He's from Brooklyn. He's a Jesuit. Pretends he's a medical doctor. When even Carrie Mullis, who created the PCR test that they faked to get all the numbers up, said that PCR test couldn't be used for that, by the way. It's not diagnostic at all. Hated Fauci. Absolutely hated. And openly said they're up to something. They got an agenda we wish they didn't have.
Yeah.
And then he died. He dies 2 months before the whole thing rolls out, by the way. Carrie Mullis.
Yes, he was like a healthy late middle-aged guy who was into surfing, and he just sort of dropped dead of a heart attack really inconveniently.
The heart attack gun.
The heart attack gun. Well, we know they have these things. They've had them since the 70s. The whole heart attack guns.
Yeah. Well,
Did you ever
Go on.
read RFK's book about Fauci?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, RFK's a funny one, isn't he? Because he's I think they've got something on him because his book about Fauci was fantastic, and obviously he's gone against the Jesuit there. But then he turns around and he bends the knee at Israel and the Habadniks. Again, he's sitting there with that. What's his name? He was trying to hang around Michael Jackson for ages. What's his name?
Uri Geller.
He's mentor.
Uri
Geller is Mossad. Obviously, he openly says that he knows he's CIA. Uri Geller. I've done quite a bit of research into him. He says in an interview, like he openly says, the Uri Geller person is an act. He got me famous. It's the act. It's what goes on behind it. Is the dark side of it. He's an agent of Mossad. He doesn't really hide it either. So Uri Geller was around Michael Jackson, but so was this rabbi. I forgot his name. He's gone out of my head now. But he's the one now basically hanging around, whispering in the ear of RFK, and then RFK goes full on pro-Israel.
I mean, the interesting thing with the Fauci book is why hasn't he been sued? Why hasn't RFK been sued? Because, if that was all fictitious, it was all made up. I mean, there would be so much material for defamation cases against RFK. It just makes you think. But it's an interesting one. Yeah, I don't know where I stand with him. I mean, he's a bit of a climate zealot, which kind of puts me off in a big way. But he seems to have done a lot of good stuff when it comes to cleaning up the waterways and suing like big businesses, big industrial businesses to clean up their acts when it comes to environmental and dumping in rivers and whatnot. So he's an interesting one, and he comes from that family again, which is, it's not insignificant that he's part of that dynasty. But again,
they
interestingly,
will take each other out.
They've disowned him, haven't they? The rest of the family's disowned him.
Well, apparently so, but they do each other in. Like we were talking about the Pilgrim Society last week with William Ramsey, and Joe Kennedy was on the Pilgrim Society, but so was the former head of CIA Alan Dulles, who covered up the JFK assassination. So there's levels to this. So they might get I'm not just saying to you, I don't know, do I for sure? But my take on what you just there would be, I don't mind you putting out the stuff about Fauci. It keeps him on his toes. We don't give a shit about Fauci. They don't care about Fauci. No. He's in over his head. So they don't mind a book coming out of him, and he can't sue you because it's all true anyway. There's levels.
Yeah, all the way through the pandemic, Fauci came across as a useful idiot.
Yeah.
The way he flip-flopped on various different issues like the masks. And we are health advisors over here. 1 minute, the muzzle's a waste of time. The next minute, well, you got to wear it. Otherwise, you're going to get people staring at you. You get people staring at you like this over the top of the mask because you're, the great unwashed who doesn't want to frigging obstruct their own breathing for no reason whatsoever.
Well, this is the satanic inversion of it, isn't it? That what you're going to do, I'm going to die of a respiratory ill if I don't suffocate myself.
Did you see, because you mentioned Putin before, have you seen this latest on Nord Stream 2?
I saw that something about someone in Ukraine admitted it was them. It was some sort of diver they had arrested.
It's like they're finally trying to pin someone on it because I don't know. I don't know anything about these kinds of things. What am I? Who do I know? But my initial thought immediately is CIA or some sort of arm of the US state when things like this happen. And when you have Biden on TV saying, we will end it. We will end Nord Stream. I mean, that's pretty strong messaging. And obviously our media and the media across the pond immediately said it's that new Hitler guy, that Putin guy. He's obviously responsible. He's blown his own gas pipes up. That sends all this gas to Europe because you even get the BBC News using terms like false flag. They used a false flag in an article this week referring to Nord Stream.
Really?
And,
So that's a thing now, is it? They're allowed.
Oh,
That's
yeah, yeah, 'cause-
conspiracy theory now, is it?
yeah. The thing is, Rich, it's only the bad guys that do conspiracies, not us. Not us, the UK or the Americans. We're the good guys, and we won't get involved in conspiracies like that.
No.
But when you look at it, then, so look what they're blaming Putin. So again, look at the levels of this, and from my take on it. So Putin is very much in the pockets of the Habadniks, these Messianic cult. So they will take the blame, play certain roles in certain bits. So look at it in terms of wrestling. Putin's playing the bad guy. He's all right there. I don't care. He's on a horse with his top off, with his tits out. He don't care. But then you've got, so then Trump's going to play like the right wing kind of. Then obviously they play characters in these things. So what that does is it brings in the alternative media to go, oh, I want to defend Putin because he can't be all bad. Well, he isn't doing all those things, obviously, and it's quite obvious that he didn't blow up his own pipes. But it doesn't mean he's a good guy. It don't mean that he ain't part of a bigger agenda. It just means that you have to take the stick for this bit. He's a pawn on the chess. He ain't playing the game. He's in the game. He's a chess piece in the game, and we're all just in the audience going, "What the fuck is going on? We don't understand the game. We're trying to figure it out." But it doesn't mean he ain't going to get taken out of the game at one point. He knows when he gets in the game that he's likely to be taken out at some point. But it comes with all of the spoils and all these wonderful things. And look how great I am. I have a great life. He doesn't really care. But he'll know that someone above him is going to knock on the door, probably a Habadnik, and say someone above them is going to tell them what to do. There is so many levels of this that it goes down. And I think it's really easy to go, because you don't like people being blamed when it's quite obviously not them, but it doesn't mean they don't understand why they're being blamed.
I mean, the way I look at it with this change in the Nord Stream messaging is it kind of looks to me as if they're looking for a soft off-ramp. The military-industrial guys, they've made all the money now, and the next stage, which is the real money spinner, is the rebuilding of Ukraine, which will run into trillions probably, and it'll be companies like Halliburton or whatever the modern conception is now will be getting these contracts that are going to last for decades and be huge money spinners. Ukraine's going to have to borrow all this money on certain terms. They might even have to give certain infrastructure away to the US and its partners in return for these loans or IMF loans. It's like the economic hitman playbook all over again, but in Europe this time. And so I think they need a way out. It's like we need to try and stop. We've made enough on the bombs and the weapons and the planes, selling them, or giving them away our old shit, our old planes and tanks, so that we can we can get contracts for new vehicles. And hey, it's good jobs. It's good blue collar jobs, building warplanes. So I think that's where I see it. I think they've made the money on the war now, and they need to get to the next phase, which is rebuilding. But they need a way to get off the ramp. We can't just. They need to set up some sort of demilitarized zone, like they did at the end of Korean War. Some sort of land in between Russia and Ukraine, which will be like a no man's land. Some sort of deal like that, and then the Western big conglomerates can go in and start rebuilding and really creaming it, really getting the cream.
Well, there is I don't know how true this is because I haven't looked into this as much as I need to really, but there is talk of it becoming the New Jerusalem in Ukraine, was meant to be leveled to become the New Jerusalem. So you would have Solomon's Temple in the Middle East would be your religious kind of, city, but you would have the New Jerusalem would be in Ukraine. So I need to look into that, but it's the most fertile kind of Crescent, which was the original, Israel anyway, the Fertile Crescent. In the crops and stuff grow so quickly there, that I've heard that's why they've leveled it to create this New Jerusalem there. Or whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's interesting.
It's the breadbasket of Europe. It's
well, I was just going to say it was the grain when you're saying about
like it was for the
use
Soviets.
it for. Yeah, well, it's normally oil, isn't it? But maybe it is something about grain.
Yeah,
and getting grain out.
Control the food supply.
Maybe, I don't know.
You just don't know what level these guys are working on, because they're decades ahead of us in their planning. But yeah, I've heard rumors about this New Jerusalem, and it makes you wonder if there's something. Because you were talking about how far back these sort of ideologies go, And Ukraine is an ancient place. You know, it just makes you wonder if they've found some sort of link back to that geographical area in their bloodlines, whether it comes from like the Huns or from Celtic. I don't know. Celts were over that period, that area. I'm trying to think back. I mean, I guess there would have been steppe tribes as well that would have migrated south into that area. It's like Göbekli Tepe. That's seen as like the founding
at the moment
epicenter. At the moment, yeah, but things keep getting older, don't they? As
they do.
Wancock says all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just get half the picture, and we're trying to piece these things together with what we're fed. And most of what we're fed information-wise is poor or nonsense or misdirection. And trying to decode all this is just so difficult.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the overall story, the Messianic agenda, to me is the only thing I kind of see obviously playing out. So I kind of try and see where does that fit in with that. But yeah, of course it is. It's all over the place. The alternative media was probably it must be set up to, and I'm talking about the ones that have been around for a long time and made a lot of money doing it. I'm not the ones that you see on, Gaia and regularly on Gaia and regularly on the big. Get the big numbers and not be really being shadow banned anywhere unless it kind of suits the narrative, and they'll find somewhere else like a Peter Thiel funded Rumble to go on. But it is difficult. The only thing I kind of am sure of is this Messianic agenda is a huge part of it, if not all of it, playing out, and that is going to part. Whether that's being used for something else, who knows? But again, it goes back 8,000 years. Even some people coming out now saying that they've found like older species of humans that go back at least 1,000 years further than the ones that were found before, that go way back to possibly where Atlantis was, which is actually in Africa, which was I don't know if you've heard of that one, but it's the
Eye of Sahara, the
Richat. The Richat, yeah, that one. So I mean, that's coming out, but that's getting pushed quite heavily. Whether that's true or not, it's just fascinating. I'm not sure if I find that true because it bleeds into the biblical stuff, and I've done a few interviews with people about that, and it's interesting. But it seems very convenient to fit the narrative and maybe push it off in another way. I'm not 100% buying anything.
Oh, we've had Dave Stiganson on, and he's been there like 3 times, I think, to the reshow.
Oh, okay. Oh, fascinating.
And he's wild. He's one of our favourite guests.
Yeah,
if
you have to listen to him talk for 2 hours to get 10 minutes on the recap structure.
He spent the first half just showing us pictures of his motorhome.
He did, yeah. And how he'd renovated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
He's a diamond, though.
He's a great person.
Hey, he dropped us like a 10 quid super chat the other week as well.
Well, there you go.
So,
even more.
Don't slag him off.
I'm not slagging him off. I'm just saying, I said that to him when we were talking to him that, we have to talk to you for an hour to get to the actual reshoot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Jimmy Corsetti's been one of the guys who's been pushing that agenda. And he, again, is on this sort of, he's more from the Christian point. He's a hardcore Christian. Bright Insight is his YouTube channel.
Is he a hardcore Christian?
Yes.
Is
yes,
he really?
Very much,
right.
Yeah. He's ex-military. Whether he's military intelligence or not, I don't know.
Right. Okay.
So I always find that fascinating. Like they can get some of this agenda, they can get it. Like Candy Zoe has just come out and was going off on one about the Sabbateans and the Jews, whilst only a month ago, 2 months ago, being taken into I don't know what the word is, I forgot what the word is, into the Catholic Church. She's talking about paedophiles, like paedophilia in the Sabbateans and Sabbatean and Kabbalah cults. And I'm like, you've just gone in the Catholic Church. Yeah. I don't understand the cognitive dissonance here. Like, you don't even my friends know about the Catholic Church and the paedophilia going on there. So how can you have that cognitive dissonance? So people that understand all this biblical stuff, and I'm like, but that the Jesus narrative is, even if he even possibly existed as a person, has been overlaid with a lot of Egyptian mythology and Babylonian mythology. We know the sun rising is sunset and Horus rising. We know all that's, to do with different religions, different mythologies. So I don't understand that they want to grab hold of something and go, but then you know so much, but you just won't let go of that bit. That's quite obvious. I'm not saying Jesus never existed as a person. I have no idea. But no one does. but clearly he did not die and then go to a cave, get up, wander down the hill, and go upstairs with his sky daddy, did he? He didn't.
Might have done.
But the rest of it, I just don't believe it. But it's okay. Well, people can believe that, but you won't believe in shape-shifting reptilians. Well, what's the bloody difference?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing.
What's the difference? They're both weird. I've got no evidence for either of them. Yeah. Like, one's acceptably weird and one's not, and I just find that fascinating.
It's when you move on to a team, isn't it? You move on to a team, you have to take up all and accept all the tenets of that team, that ideology, and it's part of the divide and conquer thing. It's red versus blue, it's Apple versus PC, it's Coke versus Pepsi. It's the one thing that they use time and time and time again, like we've seen in the riots.
Then you find out that Coke and Pepsi are owned by the same people.
Yeah, it's just great marketing. It's just great marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Rich, we're coming up to an hour already, man.
That was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for listen to me rant.
No, it's good. I've just been having a quick glance. Should definitely be a return guest in the chat there. Great guest. Loads of positive comments. So, yeah, it's been really good, really fun. And nice to have like a wide-spreading conversation touching on all sorts of different stuff. I think people have enjoyed it, so that's grand. Yeah, it's nice to meet up. We didn't talk about WTAF, about the podcast. You should just tell people about your podcast.
Yeah, every week I sit with Gareth Icke, obviously the oldest son of David Icke, and we started this off about 6 months before the whole COVID. No, it's probably a bit longer than that for the whole COVID thing, and it got a lot of people through the COVID things. It's done some decent numbers, and because it was like everything was so stupid, obviously blatantly stupid. It was a really good time to start it, and we started. Just the format works of just we can't like every week we'll bring like 7 different moments during the week from the news that's made us say what the actual fuck, and then we'll just literally go over them each, and most of them are the same because we find them really funny. But it is so important to point out the absurdity of these stupid things that these people are doing, and not many other people. I know you guys have a lot of humor in what you do as well, and a few others do, but most researchers take it very, very seriously and take themselves very, very seriously and argue over the smallest point of whether, a date where something was supposed to be, or a figure of how many children go missing a year, and it's like, fuck me, really. And it's that we need that humor, and it's maybe a very British thing, but it does really well. So WTAF, if you just put it in WTAF and just put it in Spotify and iTunes, and then you can watch it on Ickonic for free every Sunday, and it's starting to go out on X as well, and a few other ones for free until they ban us.
And you can get the audio on your general podcast apps as well, can't you? If you just want
it just
audio
goes out
only.
on all of them. So Apple, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts are the main ones, but it goes out on all of them as well, and it does really well. And people, like even people in the office back at Ickonic, they still listen to it. So, yeah, we really enjoy it. It does us good. It got us, me and him, through this because obviously we were, we're never going to put the mask on. We were never going to do the jab. We were never going to, I did none of that stuff. None of it. I stayed in my house. I never did anything. So it's like, we got to live it and go out and do this. Him being Gareth Icke, David's son, and doing the protest. He got loads of stick. We were all getting loads of stick at the time. So it got us through a lot of the mental times, and just made us laugh at the whole thing, and it just did really well. And there's a lot more coming with it. We've got some more stuff coming out. We're gonna do some live events and
cool
chats with it. Yeah.
Are you coming up north anywhere?
I'd love to go as many places as we can go. David Icke's banned from about 25 European countries, but we're not. So we'll go.
You're all right.
Yeah.
Has anyone mentioned how your co-host sounds a bit like Ricky Gervais?
Does he? I've never heard of it. I've never thought that, but maybe he does.
I was listening the other day. When he gets a bit wound up, when he gets a bit het up, his voice goes up about half an octave, and his speech pattern changes a little bit, and it's like, whoa, that could be Ricky Gervais. That
really? Well, he's a fan of Ricky in that sense, in his comedy and his dry wit. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's taken quite a bit.
I bet he's picked a bit up. Yeah. Well, Rich, this has been fantastic. We'll sign off for this part.
Thank you for having me, and
absolute pleasure.
Anytime.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. We'll do it again sometime. I was thinking about setting up some big round table ones eventually with UK lads and ladettes, but it just never happened. But yeah, you can come back anytime. Links are in the show notes, by the way. I think I've got your Insta on there and your Twitter, I think. I found you on Twitter, so that's on there. And you got Substack as well.
I have Richard.Willett at Substack.com where I write all my articles about all this weird and wonderful stuff and try and link it all. And yeah, it's doing well, actually, because I've always wanted to write, but I'm just a confidence booster, really, in my own writing. Well, thank God for spell check, though.
Well, there's a link to the Substack in the show notes as well, so check that out, folks. So that's great. We're going to sign off for this part of the episode. Rich is going to leave us, and then we will return and do some headlines of the week and some more funny stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Bye-bye.
Nice to see you, Rich.
Good
Have
night.
a good one.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.